Welcome to sunny Winter Haven, Florida. I'm Lane Dawg Bowers. I want you to realize that you are greatly blessed, highly favored, and deeply loved. And I've got an amazing truth I want to share with you today that I found out. Again, we're still talking about The Power of Right Believing by Joseph Prince. And it's an amazing truth I want you to know, because I'll tell you, for me personally, there have been many times where I've had thoughts creep into my mind, or fears, or things like that, and then on top of having those thoughts, then I'll feel condemned for having those thoughts. I'm sure some of you have done the same thing. But just like we were talking about the other day in my other video, you cannot herd cats. And it's just an amazing, funny concept out of that commercial that I mentioned, where they show these cowboys herding cats across the plains of the Midwest. And yeah, you can't herd cats, and you cannot control all the thoughts that come into your mind. That verse that we talked about is bring every thought captive into the obedience of Christ. Is you can't control all those wild animals, just like you can't control cats, but you do need to take charge and responsibility for what you're thinking about. And you can do that by, you can't control those thoughts, but you can replace those thoughts. So I want to share with you something that's really powerful, that is such an amazing blessing. It'll really, for a lot of you, this could be an amazing day, because when you realize this truth, you'll stop being condemned by your thoughts, and you'll replace them with thoughts on the obedience of Christ. Okay, so let me read to this is an amazing verse out of Exodus. It doesn't sound amazing at first, but let me explain why. It's Exodus 28:36 and 38, and it says, "You shall also," and they're talking about Aaron, the high priest here, and they're describing his garments, okay? And it says here, "You shall also make a plate of pure gold, engrave on it like the engraving of a signet, holiness to the Lord. So it shall be on Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may bear the iniquity of the holy things, and it shall always be on his forehead, that they may be accepted before the Lord." See, the amazing thing in the Old Testament is that the Israelites were not judged when they had the high priest on on their actions and their behavior. They were actually judged completely on their high priest. And when Aaron was the high priest, if the high priest was accepted before the Lord, then everybody was accepted before the Lord. So this amazing verse talks about part of the garment. And why is that important? It's because on there, in the Hebrew words, it was Kodesh, let me make sure if I get this right. Yeah, Kadosh LeYahweh. I hope I'm pronouncing that. Kadosh LeYahweh, holiness to the Lord. And that was like a signet or a band of gold around Aaron's forehead. And what it meant was that even when the Israelites failed in their thought life, and I'm sure there were many that were complaining and they were upset. You know, they talked about that a lot. The Israelites are constantly complaining. But God, in His amazing mercy, allowed this amazing high priest garment and the part that goes on his head to say that Aaron would bear the iniquities of the people. So when Aaron went in, and if his thoughts were holy and accepted before the Lord, then everybody's thoughts were accepted. So the Lord did not judge them based on their thoughts. What does this have to do about you and me? Well, the great thing is today that we have a high priest who is perfect, not imperfect like Aaron was, absolutely perfect. And our high priest is Jesus. And he doesn't wear the same garments like they did in the Old Testament. Jesus doesn't wear those. We're only to point. They were a shadow of what Jesus is. And the great news is that if Jesus, our high priest, if his thoughts are holy to the Lord and perfect and acceptable, then as our high priest, God is judging Jesus based on his thoughts. So do you think that Jesus' thoughts are holy and perfect and acceptable before the Lord? You know, it tells us in the Bible that we can have boldness in the day of judgment, because as he is, Jesus, so are we in this world. And God is not judging us even based on our thought life. But the amazing thing is do not feel condemned by the bad thoughts that you have. Replace them by bringing your thoughts to the obedience of Christ. Fill your head with scriptures empowered by Jesus' finished work. Your understanding and God's grace and His mercy is so awesome. So if you've had thoughts that make you feel condemned and feel like, how can, oh man, what kind of a Christian am I? I've had these horrible thoughts. I'm not worthy to come and talk to God about my problems. What kind of a Christian has these kind of thoughts? Do not feel condemned. Turn away from those thoughts. Bring your thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ. Put it on His finished work. Change your thoughts to those and realize God is judging you based on Jesus' thoughts. So isn't that an amazing revelation? Don't let those wild cats running through your head deter you from running to God and receiving His grace and His mercy. Turn your thoughts to the obedience of Christ and run to your Father. He loves you. He accepts you. And as Jesus is blessed, so are you blessed. Everything that Jesus deserves, you can receive by faith. I hope this just blesses you today, and I hope it gets you to realize that your negative thoughts and those thoughts that you've had, turn them around to the obedience of Christ and then run to your Father for help. He loves you, and you can expect a miracle today because you're not being judged based on your evil thoughts. Go and turn to Jesus and run to your Father and tell Him your concerns. Roll every care onto Him, and then don't worry. Turn it into His loving hands and trust Him. Because of Jesus' finished work, you are greatly blessed, highly favored, and deeply loved. God bless you today. I'm expecting a miracle for you.